Hello, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the 1-8 Garage Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Mr. Pink Lily, and I wanted to share a speech I wrote a few years ago and hopefully nip some scuttlebutt in the rear in the process. I was rummaging through some things, cleaning as a good boy does, and came across a speech I wrote and delivered back in 2016. It was received very well, and I was overwhelmed and humbled. I really couldn't believe it. I wrote the speech from the heart. I meant every word of it, and every time I read this speech, it just gets a little harder and harder to read. Scuttlebutt I'm referring to is when it's appropriate to thank a veteran and when it's not, around the holidays like Memorial Day, Veterans Day. It's said that it's inappropriate on Memorial Day because you can only thank a veteran on Veterans Day. Well, that's not true. And if you know a veteran that disagrees with what I'm saying, tell them to tune into the 1-8 Garage Podcast because I got something for them. It's unreal. Anyhow, for a veteran, every day is Memorial Day. Every day is Veterans Day. Some of us may simply be happy to be alive. Others may be contemplating the eternal questions we all have. The could've, would've, should've questions. If I pulled the trigger or if I didn't pull the trigger, would the outcome have changed? Would it have been better or worse? It's a roller coaster of emotions and it's quite a ride and we all have it. If you truly care and want to be considerate and honor a veteran, just be quiet and listen. All right. Your opinion on the wars that we've fought in and or the causation for which we entered those wars is an absolute moot point. Keep in mind, we were the ones being shot at, so we definitely know what it's all about. And what I've learned over the years, talking to veterans who served before and after me, the reasons veterans don't talk about their military service is because you aren't going to believe what we have to say, and you're probably going to look at us like we're lying about it. So we don't engage you and we move on. I'd say on the average, if it isn't playing in theaters, the mind can't process what we have to say. We've been at war for over 20 years and we are a generation of killers and it takes some time to sort those thoughts. We have fought hand to hand and rifle to rifle against our country's enemies and not all of us made it. Just remember, somebody died so that you could have the right to choose your own government. Somebody died so you could choose your own future. Hell, somebody even died so you could choose the color of the car you want to buy. So here's my speech and I really hope you enjoy it. It's an absolute honor to stand before you today. I took my oath in the United States Army to protect my country against enemies foreign and domestic, the same oath the veterans in today's crowd took. That oath was under God, and my right hand has never come down. War is the result of failed politics. Peace is not maintained with handshakes and smiles. It is preserved at the end of a bayonet and the men and women who are willing to carry out those orders at all costs, leaving everything they know, their world behind. In 2003, I was 22 years old. We stood fast to the sounds of engines idling on the Kuwait-Iraq border. We made our final preparations to enter our theater of operations. I wrote what you would call my last will and testament on a piece of an MRE box. I watched my battle buddy as he did the same, and together we tucked that document safely into the plate carrier portion of our body armor. We made a pact to let our loved ones know the truth in the event of our demise. We fastened our chin straps, grabbed our rifles, and boarded our M2A2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. Not knowing what enemies lie ahead, we pushed forward. Our mission was to provide quick reaction force to the Army and Marines that were fighting ahead of us in Baghdad and also for the country of Iraq. As we moved beyond Baghdad, we listened to the sounds of small arms fire ricochet off the hull of our Bradley. As dismount soldiers, unaware of our specific location, sealed off from the outside world in the hull, we wait for the sign to drop ramp and dismount. Bradley turrets begin traversing and unleashing 25mm high-explosive rounds upon our enemies. We know as dismount soldiers that our time is upon us. The sealing effect of our careers, everything we have done in our lives amount to this defining moment, some of us with a mere 6 months in total service. We took what we learned from our elders and our training into this moment. Our elders that were willing to talk about it. The keynote of today's agenda. Those of us that were lucky enough to have had them, who fought and served before us. Exterior explosions begin to erupt and impact our vehicle, rattling our skulls, causing deafness and disorientation. Impacts continue against our Bradley, so conducting a threat assessment through 18 inches of steel and aluminum and magnesium is pointless. We wait for our Bradley to slow down to depict time to drop ramp for dismount. Suddenly, the mechanical locks disengage and she begins to open. Through the darkness of the hull, the desert sun peers through the opening, temporarily blinding us. That gateway of destiny becomes wider and wider as we begin to push through the opening, sounding off with the fury of the infantry. The ramp touches down on that urbanized desert surface as we step into the unknown. Under enemy weapons fire, we follow fire commands and move as a unit, weapons up, advancing toward the sounds of enemy fire. Bradley commanders continued to lay a suppressive base of fire, rounds passing over our heads roughly 6 feet or more, feeling like inches. Fire teams and squad leaders shout out fire direction control over broken comm signals, guiding squads to the enemy objective as the urban terrain features manipulate our avenue of approach. We pass through city alleys and enter and clear enemy fighting positions. A-10s flying low, passing overhead on their approach towards the enemy. Medevacs on station, anticipating the 9-line request for wounded extraction, as a major push such as this will most certainly produce casualties. Apache gunships hover nearby, orbiting our area of operation, awaiting the command for an attack vector to provide close fire support. All of these elements together lead to that moment when you push beyond yourself to save the life of a fallen comrade or a civilian casualty of war. Together as one, we take the fight to our enemy. Our area of operation was known as the Sunni Triangle, Iraq, 2003. We were mechanized infantry soldiers of the 4th Infantry Division, 1st Battalion, 8th Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, Fighting Eagles from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was extremely fortunate to have served with the 4th Infantry Division. Her motto, steadfast and loyal, bears a weight that most will never understand. There are 2 types of officers in the military. There are officers who put their careers first, and then there are those who put their troops first. And I was fortunate enough to serve under officers whose troops came first overall. And that is why I have the opportunity to stand before you today. I want to dedicate and honor this day to my unit, their service, and the generations who have come before me. I have a place and a future as an American in the greatest nation the world has ever seen because of their sacrifices, and we need to pay it forward. Battalion Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Sassman, Alpha Company Commander Matthew Cunningham, Alpha Company Executive Officer Charlie Adams, and Alpha Company 1st Lieutenant 3rd Platoon, Lieutenant Adam Dykstra. Those names will mean nothing to you, but those names will forever resonate in my heart and will be forever remembered. I had the finest leadership the U.S. Army had to offer. That is my story for now. There's going to be plenty of time for me to tell another day. Today is for those who have fought and died so that I could live in a free country and have the choice to volunteer and serve my country in the armed forces. Some of those veterans were drafted. Amongst them, some chose to stand and fight while others ran in cowardice. They accepted their destiny and stood tall as Americans. These brave souls left a legacy for the future to follow. Others enlisted. They felt it was their sacred duty, regardless of station. They fight with honor, loyalty, and integrity, making me proud to call myself an American, no matter what public opinions may be. To the greatest generation, World War II, you stopped the German war machine from taking over the world. Your efforts prevented the genocide of the Jewish people, and you gave hope to all nations. To the Korean War veteran, your war was a result of the country being divided in half after World War II, an aftershock that propelled you back into the fight. You prevented your allied South Korea from being overrun and saving the lives of millions. You liberated South Korea. To the Vietnam veteran, after the fall of Saigon and the withdrawal of troops and those final dust-off images frozen in time, the historic Huey helicopters evacuating South Vietnamese civilians as they dangled, hanging on for their lives, and in some cases falling to their death, that nation knew their fate was upon them. The Northern Coalition forces swept into the South, killing hundreds of thousands of people or more. Husbands, wives, and children were slaughtered. Your efforts in the Republic of South Vietnam gave them hope. You gave them over 10 additional years of life that under normal circumstances they would have been denied. Your cause was just, your cause was honorable, and your cause was noble, and I am so sorry you had to wait over 50 years to hear that. Your actions as Americans on the forefront of battle bring great credit upon yourselves and the United States of America, and I am sure there are hundreds of thousands of Southern Vietnamese soldiers and civilians that would share the same view. And thank you as well. Welcome home, Vietnam veterans, and thank you for your service and sacrifice. Your war and my war will share many parallels. I hope that these words today bring all of you vindication for your efforts and struggles throughout the years. To the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, your war continues, and it is not in vain. As soldiers, you know the truth. Don't let an undecided America quarrel over a truth that can never be agreed upon as our war continues. It is up to the American people to not let history repeat itself. Do not let our troops return and die in vain. Their fight is just, and that fight is noble. It is not the soldier's job to pick the fight. It is our job to finish that fight. One of my favorite quotes, "There is not enough darkness in all the world to put out even one small candle," a quote by Robert Alden. America is that light that brings peace, freedom, and balance to the world. We are slowly losing the ones who gave us our freedom. They will take history to the grave with them. Their stories need to be told, and as Americans, we need to listen before history is rewritten by those who have never served and those who have not endured the hardships of war. The men and women that we owe so much to, and that they may never know what that truly means to us. Their stories need to be memorialized as they witnessed history's unfold. As a country, we have inherited the success of every man and woman who has served and died fighting for this nation and our well-being. Today is a day of remembrance in which the nation will honor those who have died while on active duty military service to preserve our nation, our rights, and our beliefs. Without a military to defend this nation, our way of life would cease to exist. Today, you need to look back on those that we have amongst us and those we have lost. You don't need a family member in the military to express your gratitude. Shake a veteran's hand and simply say, thank you. Because whether you believe it or not, the reason you have freedom is because of the sacrifices our veterans have made. Whether you feel the wars this nation fights are just or unjust, our men and women have accepted the call to fight and die for you and for me so that we may have our freedom so that you don't have to. When you've been fighting in combat for a while, dying becomes a lot easier than living. A quote by Roger Rutland, 1st Sergeant, 106th Infantry, World War II. This has become a reality with most of us, some of us, returning home. As Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, you have a moral obligation to live on. Never give up and never stop fighting whatever demons may come. Your efforts in war as our country's main line of defense does not go unnoticed, and you will never be forgotten. And as I close out my speech today, I want to thank the spouses who stood by their partner throughout the years. The return home is not always easy, and it can be a very long, hard road. It takes exceptional strength to carry out that mission. The spouses in today's crowd, you're the real deal, and they could not have made it home without you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for having me. I can honestly say I've been in the American Legion for 9 years, and that was one of the finest moments that I've had in the American Legion, to read that in the largest Memorial Day parade in Connecticut. I was in Berlin, Connecticut. I was honored, and I can't say that enough, to be given that opportunity and to dig up those emotions and to focus on the fight. And, you know, I got a little misty when I read that speech. I still get a little misty. I'm getting a little misty right now reading the speech and going over it. For those of you out there that tuned in and listened today, I'd love to hear your comments below. Thank you so much for your support. It truly is an honor to do this, and I am looking forward to telling my story, because I'm not going to let anyone tell my story for me. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for tuning in to the 1-8 Garage podcast. This is Ian, Mr. Pink Lily. Take care.